Welcome back to our YouTube channel Reddit Audio Tales. So let's start today's story. I'm Kathy, 30, and I've always taken pride in my practical, level-headed approach to life. For as long as I can remember, I've made decisions with my head, not my heart. That's what drew me to Ben in the first place. I thought we were the perfect match, a partnership built on shared goals, rational choices, and careful planning. 5 years, Ben and I spent building our dreams together, crafting a future that made sense for us both. He's everything society promises in an ideal husband. A highly successful tech executive pulling in over $500,000 a year. Kind, devoted, and completely supportive of my dream to be a stay-at-home mom. It seemed like we'd done everything right. We dated long enough to understand each other, moved in together to make sure we were compatible, and had those deep, important conversations about kids and our future as a family. Just 3 months ago, we had our wedding. A day that still feels fresh, like a cherished memory wrapped in roses and silk. I remember every detail. The weight of my designer dress, the applause of our guests, and the rush of joy as we became husband and wife. We'd agreed to start trying for a baby immediately after our honeymoon. And I went all in, preparing for the family we dreamed of. I read up on prenatal vitamins, joined local mom groups, and even started a draft for a baby registry. Hours flew by as I combed through parenting forums, immersing myself in everything from genetics and heredity to what makes children successful. I felt so ready, like every decision had led us to this point. But it's all unraveling now, and I can't understand why people around me can't appreciate the power of a rational choice. It hit me like a revelation. Why settle for ordinary when we have a rare opportunity to give our child the very best start in life? With all the advancements in science, why limit ourselves to the genetic lottery when we could choose traits that would set our child up for success? I couldn't help but dive into the world of possibilities, researching sperm banks with donors boasting Olympic-level athleticism, high IQs, and impeccable health records. The idea was intoxicating. We could handpick attributes that would give our child advantages our parents couldn't have dreamed of. I approached it the way I do everything methodically. I gathered data and studies to support my reasoning. Statistics on height discrimination in the workplace, research showing that attractive people earn more, and studies linking genetics to things like early baldness. It's not that Ben isn't accomplished. He's built a successful career despite some disadvantages. But let's be honest. He's only 5 feet 7 inches and, at just 32, has already lost much of his hair. Why would we want to pass those challenges down to our child if we don't have to? So, last night, I decided to share my idea with him. It seemed logical, even strategic. I presented it as a way to secure our child's future and give them an edge in a competitive world. But as soon as the words left my mouth, I saw his face change. It seemed like the perfect opportunity. We were discussing baby names again. And as he spoke so eagerly about our future child, I felt confident this was the right moment. I had my tablet open, neatly organized with research, donor profiles I'd carefully shortlisted, and even a few testimonials from couples who'd made similar choices. I wanted to lay everything out calmly, logically, so Ben would understand that this wasn't about love or commitment. It was about ensuring our child had every advantage possible in today's competitive world. I explained it all, pointing to a donor profile with remarkable traits. 6 feet 2 inches, a full head of hair at 45, an Olympic swimmer with multiple degrees. This, I said, holding up the tablet, could be our child's genetic foundation. We'd still be the parents in every meaningful way. But this choice would provide a head start that was otherwise impossible. It seemed to me like an extension of what we already valued. Just as we invest in the best schools, the best neighborhood, the best clothes, why wouldn't we invest in the best genes for our child? I even had studies ready to share. Research showing how children with conventionally attractive features tend to have better social outcomes, and that taller individuals earn, on average, more in their careers. But as I finished speaking and looked at Ben, the expression on his face startled me. It was as if I'd suggested something unthinkable, like sacrificing our firstborn to ancient gods, instead of a rational decision to give our child a solid foundation for success. Now let's check the story from Ben's side. They say you don't truly know someone until you marry them. 6 months into my marriage, I'm questioning if I ever knew Kathy at all. I'm Ben, 32. And tonight I'm alone in a hotel room, nursing a whiskey and grappling with how my marriage derailed over my genetics. The night started on a high. I closed a huge deal at work, the kind that could fast-track me to partner. I walked through the door, ready to celebrate. Maybe even start trying for the baby we've been planning for months. But instead of my wife greeting me with excitement, I found her on the couch, surrounded by papers and her tablet, with this intense look on her face, like she was gearing up for a boardroom pitch. The conversation started in the strangest way. We need to discuss the optimal approach to having our baby, she said. Not our plans for a family, not our future child, but optimal approach. I sat there, confused, as she launched into a PowerPoint presentation. Yes, an actual presentation about why my genes weren't apparently good enough for our child. She had slides, actual slides, on height discrimination in corporate America, dating success rates for bald men, even genetic studies on hereditary hair loss. She'd put together a cost-benefit analysis of potential sperm donors, with bar graphs comparing their traits to mine. When she got to a donor's profile, 6'2", full head of hair, an Olympic athlete with multiple advanced degrees, she actually looked at me and said, "Don't you want our child to have these advantages?" Like she was talking about upgrading our car insurance, not replacing half of our child's DNA. The anger hit me in waves. First, disbelief. I kept waiting for her to laugh, to say this was some cruel joke. Then humiliation, realizing she'd been planning this behind my back, researching it in detail while lying next to me every night. And then the fury. It took everything I had not to explode, as she went on about logical choices and optimal outcomes. Finally, she finished with my body, my choice. She actually said that, like she was reciting from some twisted manifesto. I get to choose the biological father of my child, she insisted. I was up on my feet before I even knew it, knocking over my wine glass in the process. What happened to our child? I asked, my voice barely controlled. Our family? Our marriage vows? I could feel the weight of everything we'd built starting to crack. And she just stared at me like I was the one who didn't get it. She actually looked surprised, like she couldn't understand why I was upset. She tried to launch into more statistics about genetic advantages, rattling off traits like she was picking out a racehorse, not planning a family with her husband. I couldn't hold back anymore. I cut her off. What if our kid ends up with your traits, Kathy? Should we shop for an egg donor too? Someone tall and slim. If we're so hellbent on optimal genetics. The look on her face, like she'd been slapped, almost gave me some satisfaction. But wasn't that exactly what she'd been doing to me? Sitting there, systematically tearing down every physical trait I have, twisting them into genetic flaws she thought needed to be engineered out of existence. It was like she didn't even see me. Just a collection of data points, weaknesses, to be eliminated for the sake of optimal outcomes. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think straight. I grabbed my keys and wallet and headed for the door, numb with rage and disbelief. 5 years of love and trust, shattered by a PowerPoint presentation on why I wasn't good enough to father my own children. As I walked out, she was still talking, still rambling about statistical advantages and logical choices, as though she hadn't just burned our entire life down. I haven't answered her calls since, and I don't know if I ever will. How do you come back from your wife essentially telling you that you're not worthy enough? That you're a genetic flaw she can't let taint our future family? Now let's check the story from Kathy's side. It's been 3 days since Ben walked out, and I'm only now grasping that my attempt at a rational discussion has left my life in shambles. The silence from his end is deafening. Every call, straight to voicemail. Text remain unread. And every email comes back with an automated reply. I'm watching my marriage dissolve because, somehow, no one seems to understand the logic behind my choices. The isolation might be manageable if it were just Ben. But now everyone seems to have an opinion. My phone won't stop ringing. Yet none of those calls are from my husband. Instead, it's a steady stream of concerned friends and family, all ready to tell me just how wrong I am. Even my best friend Jenny, who I thought would understand, looked horrified when I tried explaining my reasoning. Are you having some kind of breakdown? She asked over coffee. This isn't like you, Kathy. Ben adores you. And you're willing to throw away your marriage over theoretical genetic advantages. And my parents, last night, my mom called, and I could hear the anger and worry in her voice. Have you lost your mind? She demanded. Ben is successful, loving, and would make an amazing father. What more could you possibly want? I tried explaining it to her, just like I've tried explaining it to everyone else. The logic of optimizing our child's potential. The science that makes this possible now in a way it never was before. The advantage I thought any parent would want for their child. But all I get are blank stares, shocked silences, or lectures on how I'm throwing everything away. Mom, this isn't about Ben as a person or a husband, I insisted. It's about giving our child the best possible advantages in life. You always said you wanted better for me than you had. Well, this is me wanting better for my child. But as soon as I said it, I heard Dad's voice on the line, heavy with disappointment that cut through even the static. Kathy, this isn't about wanting better for your child. This is about you deciding, somehow, that your husband's genetics aren't good enough. Do you have any idea how hurtful that is? They don't understand. No one seems to. They're stuck on ideas of love and feelings, like this is some fairy tale, where love alone shields you from life's obstacles. But what about the practical considerations? What about the studies showing that tall people earn more money? Or the research that proves how conventional attractiveness shapes everything from career success to social connections? Why am I the only one willing to think about these things? They just keep talking about how I'm overthinking this, as if preparing for our child's future is somehow a flaw. Yesterday, my sister Maria came over, ambushing me in my own home. She spread photos from Ben's and my wedding across the coffee table, like they were exhibits in a case against me. She pointed to one where Ben is twirling me on the dance floor, both of us beaming. Look at how happy you both were, she said. Look at the way he's looking at you. And now you're throwing this all away because you think your kid might be short? I didn't have a response. After she left, I sat there for hours, staring at those photos. We did look happy. We were happy. But no one seems to understand that this isn't about happiness. It's about making responsible, informed decisions for our child's future. Isn't that what my choice is supposed to mean? My body, my choice. That's the principle we've been taught to hold. But now everyone is treating it like it's madness. To extend that principle to choosing the best genetic foundation for my child. And the worst part is the way people keep suggesting I seek therapy. They act like wanting to prioritize my child's success and health, wanting to make the best choices possible, is a sign of instability. It's condescending, as if taking genetic science seriously and wanting the best isn't something that same person would consider. Even my genealogist seemed uneasy when I mentioned sperm donors at my last appointment, suggesting I should discuss this thoroughly with my husband. I tried that, didn't I? And look where it got me. Ben is gone. And everyone is questioning my sanity. Not my reasoning. I'm not crazy. And I'm definitely not having a breakdown. All I want is to make the most practical, rational decision for the future of my child. But no one else sees it that way. They're acting like I'm carelessly throwing my marriage away, when all I'm trying to do is offer our child every possible advantage from the start. Why is it so hard for them to understand that? To see that this is about our child's future, not some attack on Ben. Now let's check the story from Ben's side. The leather couch in my lawyer's office creaks as I shift uncomfortably, struggling to process the words grounds for annulment and breach of marital contract. Just a week ago, I was excitedly planning nursery colors with my wife. Now, I'm discussing legal options to end my 3-month marriage because my wife decided my genes weren't good enough for our future children. My family's reaction was exactly what I expected. Pure, unbridled outrage. Mom actually broke her favorite coffee mug when I told her what Kathy had proposed. Dad, usually the calm one, turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. She did what? Mom's voice still echoes in my mind from that conversation. After 5 years together, after everything I've done for her, after all the plans we made, she started listing all the things I'd built for our future. The house I bought in the best school district, the college fund I was already setting up for our kids, the life insurance policies, the investment portfolios, and none of it matters because I'm not tall enough. My brother James, always the practical one, suggested I talk to a lawyer immediately. This goes beyond just hurting your feelings, Ben, he said during our third scotch at his place. She basically deceived you throughout your entire relationship. You married her thinking you'd have children together. Actually, together. Not with her shopping for designer jeans behind your back. When I finally met with the lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, she didn't even blink as I explained the situation. Apparently, I'm not the first person to find myself in her office over reproductive deception. She laid out my options in a clinical manner. Annulment based on fraud, since Kathy had clearly entered the marriage with intentions she hadn't disclosed. Or traditional divorce proceedings. The courts generally take a dim view of reproductive deception, she explained, shuffling through the papers I had brought. She never indicated during your courtship or engagement that she intended to use a sperm donor instead of having biological children with you. I laughed bitterly. We spent 5 years planning our future family. She watched me set up college funds, helped me pick a house with enough bedrooms for multiple kids. Hell, we even filled out one of those ridiculous couples questionnaires about how many children we wanted and what we'd name them. The lawyer's pen scratched across her legal pad. And when did she first bring up her concerns about your genetic contributions? 5 days ago, I replied, my voice cracking despite my best efforts, complete with PowerPoint presentations about height discrimination and studies. showing how baldness affects career prospects. She had it all planned out: donor profiles, genetic counseling appointments, everything, while I was busy picking out cribs online. She was shopping for better genes. Just then, my phone buzzed with another message from Kathy. I hadn't read any of them since that night. But my lawyer had. She's still insisting she has the right to choose the biological father. The lawyer notes, reviewing the latest email. She's not backing down from her position. That's what kills me. Kathy genuinely doesn't seem to grasp what she's done wrong. In her mind, this is just another logical decision, like choosing the best school district or the safest car. She keeps throwing around phrases like my body, my choice, as if this isn't about shattering the very foundation of our marriage. My sister Nancy summed it up best. She's treating having a baby like building a computer. Just picking out the best components, without any consideration for the human element. Kate's right. Kathy sees me as just a suboptimal component that needs to be upgraded. Now let's check the story from Kathy's side. The lawyer slides the annulment papers across her desk. Take some time to review these, she says gently. But given the circumstances, I strongly recommend moving forward quickly. The longer you wait, the more complicated this becomes. I stare at the papers, my wedding rings suddenly feeling like they weigh a ton. How do we get here? How did 5 years of love and trust end up reduced to legal documents with terms like reproductive fraud? They served me the annulment papers yesterday. Here I am, sitting alone in this empty house that was supposed to be filled with the sounds of our children by now. The papers lay on the kitchen counter, mocking me, while my phone keeps lighting up with messages from people I thought would understand, should understand, but clearly don't. My parents' last message still burns in my mind. Until you come to your senses and realize what you've done, don't consider yourself our daughter. They actually sided with Ben. My own parents. They blocked my calls after our last explosive argument, where Dad called me a calculating monster who doesn't understand the meaning of love or family. Mom couldn't even look at me. She just kept shaking her head and crying about how she'd raised a daughter who could be so heartless. In search of support, I've started posting on online forums, hoping to connect with people who might understand my perspective better than my so-called family and friends. But even there, I'm getting pushback. You're not choosing a handbag. One commenter wrote. You're talking about your husband's child. As if I don't know that. That's exactly why I wanted to make the most logical choice. Last week, I ran into Jenny at the grocery store. She literally turned her cart around and went down a different aisle to avoid me. This is the same woman who was my maid of honor and held my hand through wedding planning panic attacks. Now she can't even look at me. All because I dared to think practically about my future child's genetics. The support group my therapist recommended, the one I only joined to show everyone I was trying as a joke. They keep insisting I need to recognize the harm I've caused and understand the emotional impact of my decisions. But what about the emotional impact of watching your child struggle with the same physical characteristics that held their father back? Why am I the only one thinking long-term here? The annulment papers cite fraud and reproductive deception. Reproductive deception. As if wanting the best for my child is somehow fraudulent. My body, my choice. That's what we've always said, right? So why doesn't that apply when it comes to choosing the biological father of my child? Why is everyone acting like I committed some horrible crime? I've started looking into sperm banks in different states. Maybe I'll just move somewhere new. Somewhere people don't look at me like I'm some kind of monster. Start fresh. Find a clinic that understands my perspective. And have the baby I want the way I want. After all, I don't need anyone's permission or approval. This is my choice, my future, and my child's future. Let them all judge me. Let them whisper behind my back at family functions. I'm no longer invited to. Let my parents pretend they don't have a daughter anymore. I know I'm right. When I have my perfect child, tall, athletic, with a full head of hair, and all the advantages I can give them, everyone will see I made the right choice. And if they don't, well, I've already learned I don't need their approval or understanding. The funny thing is, they all keep saying I need help, that I'm not thinking clearly, but I'm thinking more clearly than I ever have. Everyone else is letting emotions cloud their judgment, while I'm the only one looking at this objectively. Maybe that's my real crime. Being too logical in a world that runs on emotion. The annulment will be finalized next week. Ben's lawyer ensured it would be processed quickly. Fine, let them all think they're punishing me. Let them all judge me. I'll stick to my principles. I'll have my baby my way. And I'll raise them to understand that sometimes being right means standing alone. 1 year later, Ben is at his new home with his new wife, who was 2 months pregnant. I was just settling in for the evening, nursing a glass of whiskey, and trying to drown out the echoes of what my life had become when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. My gut twisted. I hesitated before answering. What more could I possibly hear that would make my life feel any more chaotic? Ben? The voice on the other end was strained and familiar. It was Kathy's mother. I hadn't spoken to her since the annulment. Mrs. Thompson. What's going on? I braced myself, expecting the worst. I need to tell you something about Kathy, she said, her voice trembling. I felt my stomach drop. What is it? She had the baby. There was a long pause. She used a sperm donor. The baby. The baby has Down syndrome. I felt a rush of conflicting emotions. On one hand, I had no ill will toward an innocent child. But on the other, Kathy had burned every bridge to create this life. Are you sure? She's in a terrible place right now, Ben. She tried to sue the doctor, thinking there was something wrong with the donor. But it turns out that she has the problematic gene. It's all falling apart for her. A mix of anger and pity surged through me. She wanted to shop for the perfect genes, to engineer a child she deemed worthy. And now she was faced with the harsh reality of her choices. How did she think this would end? I muttered. Mrs. Thompson sighed heavily. I don't think she ever considered the possibility of failure, of being wrong. She was so focused on the perfect child, the optimal genetics. And now? I asked, genuinely curious. Now she's overwhelmed. Ben. She's struggling to cope. I'm worried about her mental state. She might need support. And I thought you should know. I closed my eyes, trying to picture Kathy in this new reality. I had always seen her as the ambitious planner, the one who laid out every detail of our lives together. But now, she was alone with her choices, facing the consequences. Why are you telling me this? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Because despite everything that happened between you two, you were a good husband. You cared for her. I know she hurt you, but she's still my daughter. I thought you should know. Maybe you could reach out. A part of me wanted to reach out to offer my support. But the deeper part knew that I was still healing from the scars she left. I can't just walk back into her life like that. Mrs. Thompson. I need to protect myself too. I understand. But sometimes the best way to protect ourselves is to extend a hand, even if it's just a small one. She's hurting. I'll think about it, I said, though I had no idea what that meant. I hung up, staring at the wall, my mind racing. Kathy had wanted the best for her child. Yet here she was, facing something she hadn't planned for. A situation that demanded more than genetic advantages. In that moment, I realized something important. Life doesn't care about our carefully laid plans. It can't be engineered or optimized. And as I took a deep breath, I knew that I had to find my way through this turmoil without losing myself again. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe.